Okay, so last time we ended up finishing the tour and the Beis Yosef and the Bach, talking about over here the sugi if someone is unable to afford the Ner Chanukah, Ner Shabbos, and also Kiddush. So which one comes first? So the Torah paskin that Ner Shabbos comes first. It's based on what the Gemara says because Ner Shabbos is Shalom Bayis. How is a peace in the house lighting the Ner Shabbos? The answer is because people are going to be sitting in dark. So then Rashi explained there won't be peace in the house. So obviously back then didn't have electricity. We're going to come back to electricity as we progress in the Sugya Mitzvah Hashem. So that was then the Torah came along and he said another point. Torah said, however, if a person has Ner Shabbos, so now it's a question of would he purchase the Ner Chanukah or the Yayin for Kiddush? So in that case, Ner Chanukah would prevail. And the Gemara explained on Shabbos Chav Gimel, as we saw inside, that Persume Nisa, publicizing the miracle of Chanukah, overrides is better than Kiddush. Kiddush, better than Kiddush. We said perhaps Kiddush would be better. The Gemara had a suggestion that Kiddush would be better because of Tadir V'Shein Tadir Koidim. Melim Kain, since Kiddush is more common, it would take precedence over Ner Chanukah. Comes Rav in the Gemara and says that no, Ner Chanukah would proceed because of Persum Nisa. Came along the Beis Yosef. We learned last time, top left corner. Beis Yosef says that it's mashma that Ner Chanukah. It's implied that the only reason why the Ner Chanukah comes before Kiddush is because of the Persum Nisa, as we saw. And then he says, even though that Kiddush is Deoraisa nowadays, and Ner Chanukah is Derabbanan, so shouldn't Kiddush override? Because Kiddush has two positive attributes associated with the mitzvah, aka that it is more common, and number two, it has a source from the Torah. It's Midaraisa, so it's Tadir and Midaraisa, and that should override the one that Chanukah has. The one mile, the one positive attribute of Chanukah, aka Persum Nisa, and Chanukah is Derabbanan. So Dr. Beis Yosef Teretz that what? That Kiddush could be done on Challah. So therefore, Kiddush, even if a person didn't have Yayin, would only be, would only be Derabbanan, and therefore it's a 1 versus 1, in which case the Persum Nisa would override the Tadir of the Kiddush. Persum Nisa of Chanukah would override, Kiddush would be Derabbanan. So it's implied from here, from this Beis Yosef, which is also sourced, it also a similar idea that the Ran comes along and says, and this is what the Bach says over here, what we learned last time on the top left, on the top right. Bach says that it's implied that if a person doesn't have Challah and doesn't have Yayin, then the Kiddush would be Deoraisa. In which case, then the Kiddush would actually come before Ner Chanukah. So comes along the Bach and says that's incorrect. Kiddush midaraisa, one is yoytze bepeh. Verbally, one could fulfill his obligation of Kiddush from a Torah level. He doesn't need bread, he doesn't need wine, no challah, no yayin. Accordingly, even if a person didn't have yayin or challah, nevertheless, Ner Chanukah would proceed because of the Persum Nisa reason. That's what the Rambam says as well. The Torah in Hilchos Havdalah writes that Ner Chanukah comes before Yayin for Havdalah because we could do Havdalah in Tefillin. He doesn't say because of Persum Nisa. No. That's talking about you don't need to do it in Tefillin, right? Even though it says it's possible to do it in Tefillin. It doesn't say Persum Nisa. So the reason over there is no, really Havdalah doesn't need to be done in Tefillah. It could be done verbally anywhere. But if a person would do Havdalah on the Yayin, that would only be D'Rabbanan, according to everyone. Wouldn't it be better than Kiddush? Right. There's a Bach that we saw last time. This is basically a 5-minute recap of what we did last time. That what? And that these are the different shitas. This is how we come through. Right? And then the Bach says when he said you could do Avdal and Tefillah, the pshat over there that meant verbally. It didn't mean davening. Therefore that's pshat in the Ran and the Beis Yosef. When he said you could do Kiddush on Challah, he didn't mean Challah. He meant you could do Kiddush verbally without Yayin. Same halacha will apply. If you didn't have any Challah also, you could do a Kiddush Darais, and therefore the Ner Chanukah would proceed. Those are the different opinions. That's the tweak of the Bach over here. Started the Magen Avram last time. We're going to do a Chazar because we're continuing into the Sugya, and we're going to wrap it up this week in Mitzvah Hashem. It's a short simon, but there are numerous details and interesting ideas that come out from the simon. The Magen Avram says, if a person has a Ner, one Ner is enough. When the Gemara says that Ner Shabbos comes first, so the pshat is over there that what? One Ner. One Ner. The rest is used for Ner Chanukah. So the question obviously is, so why is Mahadrim and Mahadrim more important on Chanukah than Shabbos? I would think Shabbos is more important. Especially the Gemara itself says that Shabbos comes first. That's why we're only saying that Shabbos gets just one candle and then the rest, they go to Chanukah.
One candle does the job, no?
One candle does the job for Ner Chanukah also, right? Look at Magen Avram Gimel. Magen Avram Gimel says, by the way, when we say that Ner Chanukah comes before Kiddush, that's one Ner. But it's implied from the Magen Avram and Aleph that if a person has, let's say, 10 Neros, you should use one of them for Shabbos, and the other 9 for Chanukah. On the 8th night, let's say. Why not? Why not do a mitzvah and a muvcha Ner Shabbos? After all, Shalom Bayis comes first. We'll come back to that. It's a good question.
Override that.
Yeah, why does it? But it doesn't. The Pursue Nisa didn't override Shalom Bayis.
Because you needed Shalom Bayis, but would you have the Shalom Bayis?
Yeah, so enhance the Shalom Bayis. Why are we deciding to enhance the Pursue Nisa?
Is that override?
Yeah, why? Yeah, why? Why? That's what we need to figure out.
Okay.
So it's a good question. So we're gonna get to the answer. Where do you think I'm getting these questions from? I didn't make that up. I don't make up good questions like this. I make up bad questions. I saw this brought down. It's a good question. What?
Not Makabel.
Yeah. No. Seriously. A good question. You have to see someone big bring. There's another interesting question on this sugya, but I don't want to plague everyone's mind with too many questions. So we'll see them as we go on. Magen Avram and Beis says that it's possible. It's Efshar is his language that nowadays that we light inside, you should purchase Ner Chanukah before Ner Shabbos because you won't sit in the darkness. This is actually a very controversial Magen Avram.
Wait.
A lot of the Achronim attack this. Yeah.
No, before I forget, I just want to ask about is the hitter mitzvah to what kind of oil we should use?
Kind of oil, olive oil.
I know that, but there's extra virgin. There's from Eretz, there's Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz. There's something special. What's the best one to use?
Excellent question. I would assume any olive oil is good, but we're gonna have to wait till we learn some in Tuf Reish Ayin Gimel in the future, Mitzvah Hashem, to see if the post can they differentiate between the two. I don't remember seeing a difference between the two, but it could very well be that it's brought down. It would be over there. Tuf Reish Ayin Gimel, yeah, it'll be over there. Upon him,
right.
This Magen Avram is incredibly questionable. It's questioned all over the place, but this is the Shita of the Magen Avram, the big posek on the page of the Shulchan Aruch, the one Magen Avram, he says it's Efshar. It's possible that nowadays that we light inside our houses as opposed to outside, one should purchase Ner Chanukah before Ner Shabbos, even though the Gemara said that Ner Shabbos should be purchased first. Nevertheless, that's only talking about when they would light outside. So now you have the choice. If you're going to purchase Ner Chanukah, you're going to get 0 light inside. Therefore, Ner Shabbos will come first, Shalom Bayis. But now, right? But nowadays, you could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so to say. Oh, Ein Lana Rishus / Tamish B'Emel Roisim Bilvot. It's also, we're not allowed to get pleasure from the Ner Chanukah as opposed to Shabbos, which we're specifically and purposely supposed to get pleasure. That's the whole idea, Shalom Bayis. Answers the Magen Avraham, no. There's no other way over here. And therefore, you're limited with the candles. It's like Shas Sakana, where the Gemara said, Manichu al shulchano v'dayo, you just put it on your table and that's enough. Even though you're going to get pleasure from it, it's fine. And then he says the same halacha applies during the week. That what? If you only have 1 ner, this is what you should do. If you only have 1 ner, use it for Ner Chanukah and you get pleasure with it anyways, rather than just lighting a stam ner shel rishus, an optional ner. Yeah, this is gonna get sliced and diced up, and we're gonna see if we're gonna hold like this Magen Avraham at the end of the day. Obviously, tremendous nafkamina. And another nafkamina is, what do you mean shalom bayis? What's this? What's that? Electricity. So where's the shalom bayis? We don't need to come on to some little candle. Candle? It's the biggest joke in the world. No one nowadays in New York is getting their light from a candle. Have you ever heard of such a thing? Even upstate. More hicks over there. You could go far out. But even think about it, in the middle of nowhere, who gets lights from candles nowadays? Everything's electricity. Right? I think even Amish use electricity. Not that I'm trying to bring riots from them, but the idea is, so we're gonna see nowadays, would that get switched around or not? In other words, the whole reason of the Gemara of Shalom Bayis, according to Rashi, so you won't sit in darkness, doesn't apply because you have electricity anyway. So now should So now should we buy Ner Chanukah first, as opposed to Ner Shabbos if we could only afford one? So obviously that's a serious question, which also I don't ask. That's too good for me to ask that question. The Gedolim Achronim, they're gonna have different sheet this year. We're gonna see. Kapanim, there's a Magen Avraham. Let's take a look straight at the Prima Gadim. The Prima Gadim over here, he has a few comments to make regarding this Magen Avraham. Unfortunately, there's no Machas Shekel for some reason on this. He says, Mashma l'chayra, afagav the ro beis neiros for Shabbos. What do you mean 1 ner for Shabbos? We should have 2 neiros. Why do we have 2 neiros? Well, pasuk says Zachor, another pasuk says Shama. Zachor, to remember Shabbos, that refers to the positive mitzvahs of Shabbos, the active mitzvahs. Shama refers to guarding Shabbos, the negative, the passive mitzvahs of Shabbos. It says in Siman Reish Samach Gimel, the beginning of the Siman. We like 2 neiros that correspond to the active and passive mitzvahs of Shabbos. So why don't we like 2 over here? So answers the Prima Gadim. It's enough, it's sufficient, just 1 ner. Why? And the other candles used for Chanukah and be mahadrin. And the Prima Gadim doesn't say why. He says, actually, you should look into this. Something's fishy over here with this Magen Avraham. Prima Gadim wasn't sure. So we're going to have to figure out an answer. Those bays. Look at Aliyah Rabbah Sifkot and Beis Cholik Bazeh. V'chein mashrum estimas ha'machaber v'harov de bezman hazeh nomi ner Shabbos koidim. Aliyah Rabbah also seems like according to the Shulchan Aruch, the Harav and the Magen of and the Ramah say that nowadays ner Shabbos will come first. The Prima Gadim is learning that the Shulchan Aruch holds, also implied from the Ramah and the Aliyah Rabbah, that there's no difference nowadays that we light inside. This point of the Magen Avraham. Even though that nowadays we light inside, nevertheless, even so, Ner Shabbos would still come first. Why? It could very well be that they are all concerned about getting pleasure from the Ner Chanukah, which you're not supposed to do, even though there's kind of no other way. So you have a machlokes if everyone holds like the Magen Avraham. The truth is, even the Magen himself wasn't so confident with this ruling, because he says it's possible that this is the halacha. So Lamaisa he paskined it, but he didn't say, yeah, this is definitely the halacha. He's like, it could be. He's like thinking out loud, it could be. So the Pri Megadim says that they're chaylik over there. Richodesh kan simin tafresh ayin gimel. Deloy havi hekeru l'ner Chanukah. If a person's going to be benefiting using the ner Chanukah to read and to do other activities, that's not recognizable. That's not demonstrating that it's recognizable that it's coming for a ner Chanukah, and that's going to be an issue. But Magen Avraham soiver de mishum hachi mikol makom yesh lahavdil ner Chanukah. Yesh lahadlik, excuse me, ner Chanukah. Why does the Magen Avraham say that you should light ner Chanukah? Dehabachol ki hagavna misha in lo shum ner ki im ner Chanukah vadai de madlik oiso v'lo yamrina de lo havyakir. Let's say this happened during the week, not Shabbos, okay? Not Shabbos. So during the week, if a guy only has one candle, he should definitely light that for Chanukah. And we don't say that it's not recognizable. You shouldn't just light it. Not for Ner Chanukah. For sure, you should light it for Chanukah. Furthermore, if you're going to be lighting it near the entrance of your house, and with the menorah, it will be recognizable. Who hadin b'Shabbos yasakin? Also Shabbos, you should do this. Below yaniach al shulchano ki im samach lePesach. Shabbos, you should do this as well. And you shouldn't place it on your table. You should put it near the entrance. Oh, yeshu b'choshech v'sarachin, and don't sit in darkness. But he says sarachin, you need to look into this. So in other words, what he's saying over here, it seems like he's going at the end. He's explaining the Magen Avraham. Magen Avraham, when he said you could use the Ner Chanukah, you could benefit from it. The explanation over there is that what? The explanation is that you try not to light it on the table. Try to light it by your entrance, so it's recognizable. And normally people don't make a candle over there.
That's how he's saying it would be recognizable in the case of the Magen Avraham.
Yeah, seems like, because take a look
But
over
you
here.
think that's by Chol and by
Look-
Shabbos?
Look at this line. The Ida Malik Samuk LePesach B'Benoira Yeshakera. Guys, there's a double hecker. Number one, the guy, the fellow's lighting right by his door, which he usually doesn't do. Or by the window, you could say. It's not on the table. Number two, he's using the menorah.
It's a menorah, right?
Right. So now what about on Shabbos? So on Shabbos, so according to the Magen Avraham that we light inside nowadays,
You have it on the separate table and you have it.
so yeah, you light it for Chanukah. You light it for Chanukah. He's talking about in a place without electricity. For sure, if there is electricity, which we'll see. Gimel. You only buy one ner for Chanukah. The rest you should use and for the mahadrin v'yayin kiddush mitzvah divrei sofer madif. The yayin for the kiddush, that's a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, that's better. In other words, the person has enough, or all the neros he could get. So every single night he increases one ner. The person has enough for that. Or you can make another decision. Instead of using all of the money that he has for additional neros from mahadrin, you will purchase yayin for kiddush. The answer is yayin for kiddush will come first. Why? Because that's a yayin for kiddush is a straight up mitzvah d'Rabbanan. The extra neros, that's a hitter. So something which is actual d'Rabbanan comes before a hitter. This type of logic is so, these fars are so glot. It makes so much sense once they're spoken out. It's just irrefutable. Da shno the hu adin nashim ner Chanukah. The malacha applies with women. Ner Chanukah comes before Kiddush Hayom. Excuse me. Kiddush Hayom al yain v'ner echad sagi. One ner is enough. Ma'aseh Kiddush Hayom. The rest you give for Kiddush. Brachos tavchav. Nashim zochayochem yishin shushir etc.
What about if you have Chamer Medina,
For what?
Kiddush?
What about him?
Well, Kiddush at night, we said Chamer Medina
No,
doesn't
it
work.
does not
right?
work here.
So the daytime, well, daytime Kiddush, I guess.
That reminds me of another question on the sugya. There's a well-known halacha in the Gemara. Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs. How could it be that the Gemara said that the Ner Shabbos comes first? The mitzvah of Ner Chanukah hits us first. The obligation, we're obligated in Ner Chanukah first. Ein ma'avirin ala mitzvahs teaches us we can't pass over a mitzvah.
I mean,
Mitzvah Chanukah comes first.
technically it doesn't.
It does.
Technically the Chiyuv of Chanukah comes at Shkia, but you can't today.
Right, so it comes before. Another question
Who
is,
said that's before, they both have the same time.
it's, for sure it's before. We learned that already, and if we have time, we're going to review the next and also, which is going to talk about what do you do first? What do you do when it's Chanukah and Erev Shabbos? You have to light Ner Chanukah first, because if you're going to light Shabbos first, you can't light Chanukah. If Ner Chanukah hits you first, so then you're obligating it first. If you're obligating it first, you have to purchase for it first.
That's sort of holds.
Why not? Again, another good question that they ask, and we're gonna have to see about that. Furthermore, don't we know that there's a halacha that if a person can't afford Ner Chanukah, they have to sell even the clothing off their back? Ner Chanukah.
Chanukah?
But Ner Shabbos, you don't need to sell the clothing off your back. So imagine this guy, he sells his clothing. Now he has money for Ner Chanukah. The problem is Ner Shabbos comes first. But for Ner Shabbos, you don't need to sell the clothing off your back. So now he doesn't need to buy Ner Shabbos, so he can buy his clothing back. But now he's got to sell it again for Ner Chanukah. But Ner Chanukah, what do you mean? Once he sells it, Ner Shabbos he's got to spend. So how do you reconcile that? So you got a lot of questions. In other words, you could tell I did research over here. You could tell there's what to chew on. You got questions over here to deal with, to contend with. Both lamdis, both svaras, you got to try to figure out what's the svara behind this. Number one. Number two is halacha lamaisa. Nowadays that we have electricity, so does this Gemara still apply? The Gemara says Ner Shabbos comes before Ner Chanukah. If a person can't afford both, you buy Ner Shabbos first. Why? Shalom bayis. What does that mean? That means so that it's not going to be dark in your house and everyone's not complaining and can't see anything. Yeah, but nowadays we have electricity. So maybe Ner Chanukah comes first. We have to figure all this out. Let's take a look over here at the quick Aruch HaShulchan. After the Aruch HaShulchan quotes the Magen Avraham, which we just saw the longer one, points out that it's a machloikis. Eli Rab, others argue on the Magen Avraham that nowadays that we light inside. Magen Avraham said Ner Chanukah would come first. Other argue and said there's no difference. Comes along Aruch HaShulchan mikol makom yesh lismoch al ze b'shas hadachak shahari beker tashmish yeshayimim demuter b'tashmish mitzvah k'mashu kasev simin tafrei shayin gimel v'sudah Shabbos havi v'adai sudas mitzvah. In a pressing situation, one could rely on this opinion. The opinion of the Magen Avraham, who says that that nowadays that we light inside, Ner Chanukah will come first. You're getting pleasure from it. How could you get? You're not allowed to get pleasure from the Ner Chanukah. Answers the Aruch HaShulchan, because for mitzvah, there's an opinion who holds that it's permissible. It's not so simple, but he says in this specific case, Suda Shabbos would be a mitzvah, and coupled with what the Magen Avraham said that it's like a dangerous time which you could put it on the table. There's no other way, so therefore it would be fine. That's the Aruch HaShulchan. Let's take a look at the Mishna Berura. Mishna Berura Aleph. If you have one there, that's enough. Even though it's fitting to have two, like we learned in Siman Reish Lamed Gidul Kol Siman Reish Lamed Gimel Mikom Makom Makom Hadachak Dai Shi Ner Echad Al Shulchan She'ochel V'Asher L'Ner Chanukah. Nevertheless, pressing situation like this one, it's enough that there's going to be one Ner on the table that you're eating on, and the rest will be used for Ner Chanukah. And it will be mahajin. So therefore, you really should have two, but it's a pressing situation, one is enough. And like we saw in the Magen Avram, use the remaining neiros for Ner Chanukah and tap into the mahajin aspect of the mitzvah. So how can we explain this? What is more important about Ner Chanukah, the extra ones that go there when Ner Shabbos? After all, Ner Shabbos precedes. Look at the Shara Tzion Gimel. The reasoning is that the concept of mahadrin is mentioned in the Gemara. What does that mean? What that means is the following. Take a look over here. Take a look right over here. Havakas bein neiros l'Shabbos, lighting two neiros on Shabbos, ein ze min hadin. That's not maker hadin. Ela mitzvah min amuvchar. That's a preferable way of performing the mitzvah. It's not maker hadin. It's preferable. L'chein odiv sheyahader ba'avakas ner Chanukah kim ahadrin. Comes along those v'hadim Mishna Berura and says, therefore, it's better to light Ner Chanukah like a mahadrin shu midin haGemara, which has a makor, it has a source in the Gemara. Below bebeis neiros a Shabbos shelo husku b'Gemara, having two candles. Shabbos is not mentioned in the Gemara, so we go after what's mentioned in the Gemara. So since Ner Chanukah and mahadrin is mentioned in the Gemara in Shabbos Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, therefore that will take precedence over having two neiros for Shabbos, which is actually not mentioned in the Gemara. So even though, speak it out, fellas. We got the lam this year. So even though Ner Shabbos will come before Ner Chanukah, that's if we're doing in terms of performing the bare minimum of the mitzvah, because Shalom Bayis. However, when it comes to performing the mitzvah to its maximum capacity and in its preferable manner, so then we're going to say that Ner Chanukah would proceed. Correct. Mentioned in the Gemara, yeah. Very good. Okay, 10-minute warning. That's what he says over here. So let's continue with Siv Bay with Oz Bays in the Mishna Berura. Oz Bays says, some say that Bisman Azesh Madlikim Bifnim. So you buy Ner Chanukah because you're not going to sit in the dark, even though you're not allowed to use it. It's like a pressing situation. Like a pressing situation. In which case, you can put it on the table and it's enough. Look at the Mishna Berura's psak. But most Achronim agree that one should not differentiate, distinguish between this in the time of the Gemara nowadays. So the Mishna Berura clearly paskins, and not like the Magen Avraham, surprisingly. So usually we hold like the Magen Avraham. And there's no difference whether it's the time of the Gemara where they would light inside, whether nowadays when we light inside, and therefore in both cases, Ner Shabbos would proceed. One purchase Ner Shabbos first.
You have to purchase their Shabbos, and you can't use it for both. That's what's going on, no, you can't.
Which both?
You
Ner,
you can't use the Ner Chanukah.
Right.
That you shall bias also.
right. Really, the problem is you using the Ner Chanukah for your Suda, and so that you could see. Says you can't do that.
You can't do that, right?
Right. And therefore Ner Shabbos will come first, and then you'll use that to see. Who is this involved? I mean, you have a hay over here first. After Sham Isa de Sarach Ner Acher Leshtamish Loyer Hasam Mishum Heker Sarach Ner Acher de Lo Yomer Lesarcho Hedlika. Bemes Imin Lo Ner Acher Nami Mutter. After Korch Mashamish Al Chulchano. The Rabbi feed das Magen Avraham Eli Rabba. Big the Yesha involved. This is who argues in the Magen Avraham. It's implied from the Derech HaChaim the Hitik Din to Shulchan Aruch Lididon after Bizmanenu Madlikin Akol Bifnim. Kasa Prima God Machain Mashma seems Bachabe Rov Shlo Chelko Mashma the Dyson Bim Yabliko near Chanukah Ya also the Shtamish Lafanov. So also the Prima Gadim said that we saw. This is the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. They didn't differentiate between back then and nowadays, even though we light inside. Still a problem. So it's mashed that they hold that if you lit a Ner Chanukah, it's prohibited to use to benefit from it. Look at some in Reish Gimel. So Gimel, what does it say over there? If you can't afford Ner Shabbos and Kiddush, Ner Shabbos will come first. It's exactly what we learned over here. So we're going to learn that again. Mitzvah Hashem, Reish Gimel. Point out over here, which read it's on the Prima Gadim, even according to the Magen Avraham, when you're going to use the Ner Chanukah to get pleasure from, it should be in a different area, so it'll be recognizable. We already saw all that. The Mir has another explanation of what it means that Ner Shabbos is for Shalom Bayis. The mitzvah of Ner, men have the same obligation of Ner Shabbos. Just the mitzvah is given over to the women, and that's why all the women light. So therefore, if she's going to be unable to fulfill the mitzvah, because he's going to be lighting his Chanukah candles, there's going to be a whole quarrel. Seems like we just give in, let the women let them have their mitzvah. Yeah. Similarly, the Rashash explains that based on the Gemara. Says that women could die during childbirth for 3 mitzvahs. They didn't perform the mitzvah of Nida, Chala, and lighting the Ner. Right. Therefore, she should be stringent with the Ner Shabbos. She would proceed. So this is what they're saying, that even though you're going to light on the table in your house, you're still not allowed to use it, even in a pressing situation. Therefore, even on Shabbos, it's prohibited to use the Ner Chanukah to light up your house. And since you can't afford it, you should purchase Ner Shabbos alone. So that would be not like the Magen Avraham. Come back to Dalit. I want to go out of order. Do the last ones first. Hey, should purchase near Chanukah first. That means one nair. I know nair echav amoisel yain the kiddush, as we learned, and the remainder is going to be used for the yain for the kiddush, the wine, because of presuminisa kiddush ayom halo yachol kadosh pas kiddush you're able to do with challah. Lavachi kiddush ala yain hu rak mederabanan. First of all, also even without this, the kiddush on the yain is only mederabanan. The minator yoytzi bezachir is dvarim ba'alma. Midaraisa, person who fulfills obligation with just remembering something. Just verbalizing it. Kodam liyayin havdalah mishum high time for the same reason. What's is going on? In Zion. Ramah said Ner Chanukah will come before Yayin for Havdalah. Same reason for Sumay Nisa. Look earlier. What does it say? Look where? Yishadi Vav Hilchos Havdalah. Look in Hilchos Havdalah. In Yizkar Shem Yizmikam. Nothing over there is mentioned more than here. Near the Sarach Lomar Kidil Al. Should say like we said earlier in that simon. One nair, you fulfill your obligation for your chiv ner Chanukah. The rest should be used for yayin. It's also mitzvah derabanan. It would come before a hiddur on a mitzvah of ner Chanukah. That's the logic behind that. Kiddush, even though it's more stringent than ner Chanukah, because it has like obligation min Torah, as we already learned. Nevertheless, you're able to do kiddush. You're able to do kiddush on challah and fulfill your Torah obligation that way. And therefore, you should use ner Chanukah. You should purchase ner Chanukah first. Another reason is kiddush on the yayin is only midrabanan. In the Torah, from the Torah, you can fulfill your obligation verbally, meaning in tefillah. Mention Shabbos, even though the ner Chanukah is midrabanan. They said that it was better because of Persuminisa. Comes before yayin because of the same reason for Havdalah. You do Havdalah and tefillah, and furthermore, Persuminisa is better.
See that you fulfilled the takana of yayin for Abdallah, you still fulfill it in tefillah, and the money should go to Ner Chanukah. All right.
Say again?
We're saying that since you could be mafdal of the tefillah, you're not going to fulfill the takana, the rabbanon of yayin, but it's lighting Chanukah candles. Pesuminisa overrides the takana of the rabbanon.
Oh, it would override the Persuminisa would override the Kiddush, which is Tadir.
Also, the Abdallah is negative, no?
Havdalah also Tadir.
Yeah.
It's not the Araisa because you have to say before verbally. All right, so Mitzvah Hashem, we're gonna pick it up with Dalid in the Mishna Berura tomorrow. Wrap up the Mishna Berura and then wrap up the Sugya.
We never saw anywhere about wearing big day Shabbos on Chanukah, did we? We see that concept on Purim.
Yeah,
We don't see that on Chanukah.
I don't think it's brought up Chanukah to wear big Shabbos.
Even though you're gonna have a suda, let's say if you have a sudas mitzvah.
Sudas mitzvah is optional.